first experience playing a Tele, God, I honestly don't remember. I sort of, for the longest time, I was really more of like a Les Paul kind of player. That was more my thing. And I always wanted to be a Telecaster player. I always liked the way a Telecaster looked, liked the way it played, liked the way it sounded when other people played it. But I had, just always been a, humbucker kind of guitar player. And that changed for me a couple of years ago when I bought a Tele Deluxe. I'd never seen I didn't even know there was a Tele Deluxe, but it's, the Tele with the humbuckers in it. And that kind of opened up the Telecaster to me. That was it. It's like I don't know what year it is, it's some early 70s Tele Deluxe. That was the turning point. Since that time, I've been like obsessed with my Teles. I've got a bunch of them and, gotten into them more. First off, it just looked and felt great. It's old. It's an old wood grain, just a blonde, kind of beat up old Tele Deluxe, and it just sounded so good. It's it's got the humbuckers in there, so it's beefy when you want it to be beefy, and it jangles when you want it to jangle, and it's sort of the perfect. It's like the perfect Tele to me. I love the traditional. I have a couple regular it's just single coil Teles as well, but. And I like playing them, but that sound it doesn't lend itself as much to what we do in the Foo Fighters and some of the sort of more rock stuff. Although it's great for playing country, got that nice sweet twang. It's funny because I bought this brown Tele a few years ago, and it was a little I was like, God, I got to make this thing sound like a rock, thicker sound. So I put some really crazy pickups in it. And then it was like completely over the top. So every time I plugged it in, it was like, and just made all this noise. And I kind of put it away for a while, and I found it, and I was like, oh yeah, man, I gotta play this thing. And it just didn't sound good. It just sounded terrible. And I finally went and put in a nice, I think it's an Alnico 2 Seymour pickup in there, and it's like all of a sudden it just became that perfect, sweet Tele sound. So I solved the riddle. It's the pickups. When I was recording my Dead Peasants record, which is more, like kind of Americana flavored or whatever, my friend Eddie Perez came in, who's the guitar player. He plays for Dwight Yoakam right now. He does a lot of stuff, and he's a real super, Tele guitar player. And he came in and played a bunch of guitar on my record, like right at the beginning, before I had even actually I'd just done some acoustic tracks on it. And what he did on the record really influenced it, really sort of changed my approach to even what we were doing right then, and the sound that he got, just playing through it, like an old deluxe reverb and an old super reverb. It just basically that whole record, that's all I played through was my Teles, mostly my Tele Deluxe, but I had a couple other ones too, and I just had an old Blackface Deluxe. I had I think we must have had an old Twin. We had a super reverb in there. We had a little Champ, and we would just sort of switch between those amps, And there's something about playing the Tele through a nice old Fender amp too. It's just it's obviously they're just made for each other, and it just all of a sudden it's just that tone that you've heard through the years. A lot of that, country music from that era, whether it's Waylon Jennings or Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, all those guys, and Merle Haggard, and even Buck Owens and stuff like that. I was listening to a ton of that stuff when we were making that record, and the thing that struck me the most about most of those records is just how spare they are, And I think that's why that Tele cuts through in a certain way in those records, because they're just not. It's not like, modern rock and roll records where there's 8 million layers of everything, and it sort of, it gets bogged down in layers. And that's what, that was the kind of thing that we were trying to make, I guess. It's just like any guitar. It's like you see one of your favorite guitar players playing it, and you're just like, oh, God, I gotta get one of those, because you know, you sort of have this fantasy that if you just get that guitar, you're gonna play guitar like Keith Richards, man. And it doesn't really work like that, but you know, it definitely helps.